It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And we're the Insiders. Well, the nation and people all across Wisconsin were watching the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill this summer. And now reality is going to be coming as the bill begins to take effect. Rules are implemented, money goes out the door. What's the impact going to be here in Wisconsin of President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill?
It's the ugliest bill I've ever seen, and it's going to have an awful impact on the state of Wisconsin. By the way, one of the major things that happen is a very traditional thing that happens, and that is one element of government taking away funding that they know will have to be replaced by another element of government so that they look good, that they cut somebody's taxes. The federal government is making so many cuts here. You could talk about dozens of different things. But let's take the one that's probably most obvious and most devastating, and that is there are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of billions of dollars cut nationally, and hundreds of millions of dollars cut here in Wisconsin. We may lose rural hospitals. We're definitely going to lose hundreds of thousands of people from health insurance. These are not things that are good for the state of Wisconsin, and that's going to be the major impact. Will we really see the impact of the tax cuts and how much more rich people, how many more cars they can buy, how many more places they can buy? No, we're not going to see that. This is going to be devastating for the state of Wisconsin. And in addition to everything else, they didn't really cut your taxes at the national level. They just sent it back to the state to pick up the tab. And by the way, states are less efficient in their raising of revenue than the federal government is. It also creates competitive differences. So there are just all sorts of things. And it's not just in the healthcare area, it's food and food assistance. It's even food pantries, and whether or not they will have as much food is not available. There are just dozens of different ways that this is really bad for our nation and for the state of Wisconsin. And I know people hate to hear this, but I mean, this is an extreme overreach of presidential power. Are we at the point where we may be losing our democracy? I don't think I think we'll have a vote in this next election, and I think people need to come out and send a strong message. But what happens in the next presidential election is an open question.
Well, Chuck has given you the doom and gloom predictions there for the result of this bill. I find it interesting that people say that the spending cuts will matter greatly, and the tax cuts will not matter at all. I think that's unlikely to be the case. I think you're going to see that there were tax cuts for working families who have overtime or tips are an important part of their income. Senior citizens have tax cuts that are in this bill. Businesses have tax cuts. All that I think is going to be helpful to the economy and helping people afford things. Right now, people are sort of desperate. They need the money more than the government does. And it's good that we're sending that money back to them or letting them keep those funds in the first place. On the other hand, they did also increase investment in childcare in the budget bill. Your predictions about doom and gloom with regards to Medicaid and rural hospitals and the like. I think on the Medicaid thing, you call it a cut. I would say it's a work requirement that people, in order, if they are single and able-bodied, if they want to be able to continue to have the government provide them with health care, they need to be looking for work to support themselves. And eventually, hopefully, get a job that has healthcare attached to it. You look at that as a cut. I look at that as a reasonable work requirement. We have those sort of work requirements for other welfare type programs. So I think I guess time will tell what happens with all of this. But I believe the tax cuts will make a difference. They will continue to help families, and they will improve the economy here. And that is more important to most people than some of the spending reductions that were necessary as part of this bill.
Let's take on directly this idea of work requirements. Work requirements are really not that. What it is it's a paperwork requirement. And I've seen this with clients. I've even seen it with family members. What happens is that you put in place so many difficulties in terms of paperwork so that people, they just get exhausted from having to refile and refile and refile. And that's what's going on here. This isn't taking people who are the undeserving poor who don't deserve health insurance. Okay, let's see who those people are. What it really does is it takes all sorts of people who may be able to, are healthy enough to work for a little while, and then they can't, and then they have to apply again. But it's there's a delay, and they don't have insurance, and then all of a sudden they don't have insurance, and then they go bankrupt. By the way, the major cause of bankruptcy up until recently was lack of medical insurance and medical bills that are associated with it. I've known people who have not had insurance, and their lapse in coverage cost them tens of thousands of dollars, and they were driven into bankruptcy. That's what this does. It's a cruel and obnoxious bill. And I am so disappointed that my Republican colleagues who know better than this would allow something like this to happen. And it is absolutely not about keeping the undeserving poor off of welfare. This is about healthcare, fundamental healthcare, and it's about paperwork that people need a lawyer to get it done. And I'm the lawyer who's had to do it occasionally for people. And it is severely wrong for our country, severely wrong.
Well, I think one thing we can both agree on is that the implications of this bill, the impact of this bill, will reverberate in the elections in 2026. I think both parties will be campaigning based upon what they think are the benefits or losses associated with this legislation. And so it will color the elections at 26 from both sides.
I agree with that. And with that, we hope we see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insider with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.